All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are on Notes 4.3, which is going to show us how to graph lines using charts. So turn to page 8, and we have two examples that we'll go through together as a class, and then hopefully you'll be able to do any type of problem like this in the future. All right, so in order to graph out a line is always going to be in a specific format, a specific equation, which we talked about a little bit a couple days ago, but we're going to talk about this a little bit more in depth in the next couple of days. Anyways, the whole point right now, in order to be able to do this, is we need to isolate y, because a line is just a series of points. So right here, here's my line. Here's an example of a line. It's just a bunch of points that are connected together, okay? And each one of these points, when you do it on a graph, like what you have right here, is represented by a coordinate. So if I know all of my coordinates, then I can go ahead and graph out my line by connecting the dots. So a coordinate has two parts to it, though. It has an x and a y. And we know the relationship between x and y by using this equation right here. The easiest way to deal with this is to isolate the y. Now the y is already isolated in this example right here, so I don't have to do anything to get the y by itself. This box right here, we're going to just fill in what y is equal to when it is isolated. So here, y is equal to negative 5x plus 2. Okay, so now all I need to do is figure out what my coordinates are. Now in this chart right here, all of these values here are just given to you randomly. You could choose any points that you want because a line has infinite points, right? A line goes on forever, so you have a lot of points that you can choose from. So I just randomly chose these numbers and put it in. So here, this is all my x values. So if I want to figure out what y is equal to, every time I see an x, I'm just going to plug in this number right here. So every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with this x value right here, which is negative 1. So since I know that x is negative 1, I'm going to use this equation right here to figure out what y is. So I would say y equals negative 5, and then instead of x, I'm going to replace it with a negative 1, because you're substituting it in, you're replacing it, plus 2. Okay? And then you just have to use order of operations to figure out what the answer is, and make sure you remember all your rules for signed numbers. So negative 5 times negative 1 is a positive 5. So this turns into positive 5 plus 2, which gives you 7 right here. Okay? So then if you look at this right here, your coordinate, it asks you to fill in what your coordinate is. Well, remember, a coordinate is just an x value followed by a y value, right? So your coordinate is always x comma y. Well, in this example, your x value was negative 1. So I'm going to say that it's negative 1, comma, and then my y value right here was 7, so it's negative 1, comma 7. Okay, so that's my coordinate. Let's try the next one. So if I were to do negative 5, and instead of x right here, I'm going to replace it with this number right here, which is 0. So it's negative 5 times 0 plus 2. Well, negative 5 times 0, anything times 0 ends up being 0. So I'd get 0 plus 2, which is 2. So that means that my coordinate right here would have to be my x value, which is 0, followed by my y value, which is 2. So it'd be 0, comma 2. Okay, I want you to take a minute and try it with 1, plug it in, press pause, try it yourself to make sure you can do it on your own, and then come back to me when you're ready to go. All right, so you should get negative 5 times 1 plus 2, and then negative 5 times 1 is negative 5, right? So you'd get negative 5 plus 2. Use the scoreboard. Team negative won 5 points, team positive won 2 points, so team negative won the game by 3 points. So this would be negative 3. Then my coordinate would be my x value followed by my y value, so it would be positive 1, comma negative 3. Okay, and then the last thing I would do is the same thing with 2 as well. So again, press pause, take a minute to try it, and then come back to me when you've completed the answer. All right, so you should do negative 5 times 2, because this time we're replacing the x with a 2, and then you're going to add 2 to that. So you end up getting negative 10 plus 2, which is negative 8. So that means that your coordinate right here would be 2 comma negative 8. Now we could keep doing this forever because a line has infinite points. So I could go all the way up to positive infinity and I could go all the way down to negative infinity, but I'm not going to bother doing that because I have enough points in order to be able to do this. So next thing I need to do is graph out my coordinates. So my coordinates are all listed out right here. So all I have to do is graph out what the points are. So the first point that I have right here is negative 1, 7. Okay, so I'm going to color code it so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. So here's the first point, negative 1, 7. So that means I would go to the left 1 and up 7, and I would put a dot right there. Okay, the next coordinate is 0, comma 2. Okay, so right here, be careful. A lot of people want to put 0, comma 2 there. That's 2, 0. 0, comma 2 means you don't go to the right or the left at all, and then you go up 2. So here's 0, comma 2. All right. The next coordinate is 1, negative 3. So I'm going to go to the right 1 and down 3. All right. And then the last coordinate is 2, negative 8. So I would go to the right 2 and down 8. Okay, then all I have to do is connect my dots. You need to use a straight edge as you're doing this. If you don't have a ruler, that's okay. You can find anything that is straight to help you draw your line. Unfortunately, I don't have a ruler that I can use against the screen up here, so my line is not going to be perfect, but I expect that your line is as nice as you can possibly draw it. Now, if you have a line where the dots end up looking like this is not a line. So you need to make sure that you actually get a line. If you don't get a line, you got to start over again and figure out where your mistake is. Notice how these 4 dots definitely would connect to create a line. So let's draw our line out. You need to make sure your line goes all the way through your graph, from the bottom to the top, okay? And then without arrows, it's not a line. So you must put your arrows on your line. Now, we do not label our coordinates. Instead, what we do is we label the entire line with one single label, which is the equation of the line. So we're going to say that this line is y equals negative 5x plus 2, and I'm done with question number 1. All right, let's take a look at the next question. The equation says 3x minus 4y equals 16. Now, if you notice right here, the y is not by itself, okay? So we need to get the y by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the equation right here. I'm going to rewrite it right on top so I have enough room to be able to get the y by itself, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at what kind of a 4y it is. Because it's a negative 4y, I want to make it positive. So I'm going to add 4y to both sides to make my life easier, okay? Don't forget, these are not like terms. So you end up getting 3x equals 16 plus 4y. Remember, your goal is to get the y by itself. So on the same side of the y is the 16. So I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. Okay, so I end up getting 3x minus 16 equals 4y. So now I just got to divide everything by 4, and I end up getting 3/4 x minus 4 equals y. So now my y is by itself. That's what goes right inside of this box right here. So I'm going to say y equals 3/4x minus 4. Now, here's where you got to be really careful. Again, you can choose any x values you want. It's totally up to you. But here's the thing that I strongly suggest you do. See this fraction of 3/4? That means that you're going to eventually have to divide by 4. So I strongly suggest that you choose numbers that you know for sure are divisible by 4. For example, 8. 8 is divisible by 4. I know that that would work for me. 20 is divisible by 4, so I know that would work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose any numbers that are divisible by 4, and I'm going to make sure that I have some positives and some negatives as I do this. All right, so I'm going to just randomly choose negative 4. I'm going to start with negative 4. I know 0 is divisible by 4 because 0 is divisible by any number. And then I'll try a 4 here, and then I'll try an 8 here. I know there's a 5th spot here, but we're just going to leave that blank because we don't need all of those points there. We'll only do 4 out of the 5 points. So every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with whatever this number is here, which is -4 in the first example. So I'm going to write down right here 3/4 times -4/1. Because in order to multiply a fraction, I need another fraction right here. So this is technically -4/1, and then I'm just going to copy the rest of the problem down, which is -4. Okay, so then I end up getting equals, well, this 4 right here and this -4 will cancel each other out. This will become a 1, this will become a -1, so I end up getting 3 times -1, which is -3. And then I just copied the rest down, which is -4, so I get -7. So that means that my coordinate here would have to be -4, -7. Okay? Let's do the next one together, so that way you can understand what it is that we're doing. All right? So here you get 3/4 times 0. This time I have 0/1, right? -4. But here's the thing, you guys. Anything times 0, no matter what it is, will always give you 0. So this is nice and easy. I just get 0 minus 4, which is -4. So that means that my coordinate would have to be 0, -4. Okay? So let's try the next two together again. We're going to continue to do these together, but in class you have to make sure that you try some of these on your own, so you make sure you can do it yourself. Okay? So the next one is going to be 3/4, right, times x, but this time x is 4, so times 4/1, and then I copy the rest of the problem down, which says -4. Okay, so then I look and I see, what can I divide 4 and 4 by? Well, they're both divisible by 4, so this becomes a 1 and this becomes a 1. So it turns into 3 times 1, which is 3. So I get 3 minus 4, which is -1, which means my coordinate right here would be 4, -1. I get the 4 from here and the -1 from here. Okay? And then the last one, 3/4. Every time I see an x, I'm going to replace it with 8 this time, so 8/1. And then I copy the rest down. It says -4. So I end up getting, let's see what will cancel out. Well, this 4 and this 8 are both divisible by 4, so 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2, so I get 3 times 2, which is 6. So I get 6 minus 4, which is 2, so my coordinate right here would have to be 8, 2. Okay, so now all I have to do is graph out my points and connect my dots, and then I will be done. The nice thing about this graph right here is that it's already set up for you, except the axes are not labeled. So please make sure you label the axes. We'll label this X and label this Y. And we'll also do the top one as well because we forgot to do that. So we'll label this X and we will label the Y-axis as Y. And let's go back down to these coordinates right here. So my first coordinate is -4 and -7. So I'm going to graph that point out. So I'd go to the left 4 and down 7. So this right here is -4 and -7. Okay. The next coordinate that I have here is 0, -4. So remember, this means you go nowhere to the right or to the left, but then you go down 4. So here's your next point. Okay. The next point that we have is 4, -1. So here's my next one. That means I go to the right 4 and down 1. Okay, and then the last point that I have is 8, 2. So I'm going to go to the right 8 and up 2. Here's my point right here. I know for sure that I did it right because it appears to create a straight line. So now all I have to do is connect my dots. But again, make sure that your line goes all the way to the ends of your graph. And then you got to label your equation with your line. It doesn't matter if you use the original equation right here or the isolated y equation. It's 100% totally up to you. Okay, so if you want to label it 3x minus 4y equals 16, totally fine. If you want to label it 3/4 x minus 4, that's fine as well. So I'm going to write down 3x minus 4y equals 16, and I am all set to go.